Good morning, Internet. It is 7 a.m. on March 25th, 2019, and I have a great show planned for you, a great week of shows. And it was a very interesting weekend at that because on Friday night I had wrote a letter to, the man of many talents, as we're going to talk about, Owen Benjamin, and he was kind enough to promote my channel on his and send a lot of the bears, so to speak, my way. So I thought, what better way to start the week to introduce the bears to part of my theory on a proper education than to go over the concept of talent stacks using the big bear, Owen Benjamin himself. Now, for those of you not familiar with my work and the concept of talent stacks, it's simple. If you look at most successful people, they have stacks of talents, different skill sets that when put together allow them to be very successful. Now, these talents aren't always the same. They come in many different sizes, many different shapes, many different forms, many different combinations. But what all these successful people have in common is that they have some combination of talents which allow them to be successful. And if you raise your child with that in mind and make sure they have the right combination of what I call talent stacks, they will unquestionably grow up to be strong and independent. And I can't think of a better example. There's a few people that come to mind that demonstrate the power of talent stacks better than Owen Benjamin and the story that many of us have observed over the course of the last 2 years. And the reason for that is many of the powers that be, the oligarchy, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Hollywood, have set out to destroy Owen Benjamin. So what I'm going to do right now is tell you his story and how, because of his talent stack, he has been able to overcome very powerful forces attempting to destroy him. And then if you take that same concept and understand it and apply it to the way that you educate your child, you can make sure that your child is Teflon. Your child is strong and independent and never has to rely on anyone else. And that is what those in power fear the most, because it is the people that don't have to rely on anyone else that become the strongest, that are able to speak their mind because they're not worried about being ruined financially. They're not worried about their family starving. They're not worried about being kicked out onto the street because they know they have a talent stack that is so strong that they don't have to rely on any single person, any institution to make a living and take care of their family. I believe it was the Rockefellers that once said, and I may be misquoting it, I believe it was one of the oligarchs, the Rockefellers, that once said that they do not want a nation of thinkers, they want a nation of workers. And the reason for that is a nation of thinkers who are independent and strong and capable of taking care of themselves, while they are people that are willing to speak truth to power. So let's get into the story of Owen Benjamin and why his example really demonstrates the power of talent stacks. And again, just a quick definition, a talent stack is just a combination of skills that a person has that allows them to find success in whatever it is that they do in the real world. These talent stacks come in many different sizes, shapes, forms, many different combinations, but something that all successful people have, if you observe them, is a set of skills that allow them to be successful. So, Owen Benjamin originally broke into the limelight through Hollywood. As many of us know by now, Owen was a stand-up comedian. He was at college, and Kevin Hart was touring, came to his school, and some way or another, Owen wound up opening for Kevin Hart that night. He did a good job, and Owen was discovered. So his original talent stack set him up for success in Hollywood. So let's talk about what that talent stack was. Owen opens for Kevin Hart, and right away he finds success. And he had some natural traits that you can't teach that help with that, but the rest of the traits he has all throughout his career are all things that can be learned, all things that can be taught to a child. Now, I'm not saying that you have to teach your child to have the same talent stacks as Owen, but I'm saying that the concept of talent stacks could be applied to the way you raise your child. So, Owen's tall, 6'7", he's intelligent. He, by Owen's own word, he took an IQ test, got a 147. So those work in his favor. You watch him talk for a few minutes, you see he has a very natural presence and charisma about him. But a lot of people are tall, a lot of people are intelligent, and a lot of people haven't been able to find the success that Owen has found, especially with major institutions such as YouTube, such as Twitter, such as Facebook and Hollywood attempting to destroy him, yet he's been able to overcome. We're going to talk about why that is. So, he started doing stand-up comedy. Well, obviously, he's quick with a joke. He's funny. But there's a lot more that goes into that. So, you get up on stage. You haven't done it before. You're on stage. You're opening for Kevin Hart, so you can only imagine hundreds of people, possibly thousands of people, sitting in an audience before you. For any of you that have not done public speaking of that manner, I could imagine there's a great fear in that. In fact, studies have shown that people are more afraid of public speaking on average than they are of actually dying, which I kind of find hilarious because public speaking now comes pretty naturally to me. But Owen was a very good public speaker, so he was able to get on stage and comfortably not only say what he had to say, but draw the crowd in, work the crowd. Owen's actually spoken about this when he talks about hecklers. You don't want to go too hard at a heckler right away. You want to draw them in, let the crowd start to get annoyed by the heckling, and then once the crowd is on your side, then you annihilate the heckler. That's working a crowd. That's a skill that Owen developed partly through experience and partly through, well, I'd actually like to hear from Owen why he was so good at public speaking from the start. But it's a skill that you can teach your children by having them do it through experience. So Owen is funny. He had an ability to speak publicly, and he was a master of rhetoric. What is rhetoric? Well, why don't we use Bernie Sanders as an example? He certainly uses a lot of rhetoric. Republicans want people to die on the streets. If we don't make healthcare universal, free, paid for by the taxpayer, then people will die on the streets. Do you want people to die on the streets? Well, no, it's not a binary issue. If I don't support single-payer healthcare, that doesn't mean that I support people not having healthcare and dying on the streets. So Bernie Sanders uses rhetoric in that way to get single-minded thinkers to back his ridiculous plans of increasing taxes to the point where the middle class is annihilated to pay for people's health care. But Owen is actually a master of rhetoric, and the reason for that is his father is a professor, and his father actually taught rhetoric and persuasion. So Owen grew up every day being with someone who was a master of the art of rhetoric. So when you start to put the talent stack together, you can see why he's a stand-up comedian that's been very successful. He's tall. He has a presence. He's intelligent. He's funny. He's quick with a joke. He is very comfortably speaking in public and working a crowd, drawing a crowd in, getting them on his side, telling his jokes, and if he has to, destroying a heckler. He's a master of rhetoric, so he can use hyperbole, he can use exaggeration, he can use example, but he's very good at using rhetoric, as I described with Bernie Sanders, right? You don't want free health care. Well, that means you want people to die in the streets. Using rhetoric to put an explanation point on whatever it is that he's trying to convey. Then, piano. Owen has the ability to play the piano at such a level that he can play Bach by ear. But I would like to make an important distinction, because if you listen to Owen talk about it, he says, if you looked at it on a 1% level, like playing, in terms of who is the most talented piano player in the world, Owen would say he's not nearly as talented as some other people. But that doesn't matter. He's very good at playing the piano. He doesn't have to be the best in the world because he has, what I'm going to show you is a very significant talent stack that allows him to essentially be Teflon. No matter how many times these institutions try to destroy him and how many ways they attempt to destroy him, they can't do it. He's independent, he's strong, because he has a talent stack. And this is what we're going to teach our children. How to have talent stacks so that they don't ever have to rely on anyone else. So now you have this tall, intelligent, funny guy, very comfortable speaking in public, a master of rhetoric. He's funny, and he plays the piano. And if you watched his stand-up comedy, you know that he really brings all of this aspect of his talent stack together. That not only does he tell jokes, but some of his funniest bits are actually on the piano. Think about the bit he does where he talks about the difference between Sean Stroke, brother. I really appreciate you tuning in. Love you, bro. When he plays the piano, or when he's doing a stand-up comedy, one of his funniest bits is on the piano. And what he does is Peter, how you doing? What he does is he uses the piano to insinuate that he's in the mind of the man and the mind of the woman. So the man comes home from work and he has man piano brain, and it's like do 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 do, and the man's just lost. He's happy, and then it goes inside of the woman's mind, and it's like thunder and lightning. It's a storm. Hell is raining down on her, and they're having a conversation with the different music playing in their head, and he's doing this. He's telling jokes, and for all of us that have seen it, it's hilarious. So Owen has a talent stack that is very conducive to allowing him to be a successful stand-up comedian. But when Owen got to Hollywood, he didn't stop at the talent stack of being tall, intelligent, funny, public speaking, a master of rhetoric. His father taught rhetoric. Could play Bach by ear on the piano. All very conducive for stand-up comedy. It's a great talent stack for that. But Owen didn't stop there. He continued to develop his talent stack. Now imagine if you're a parent and your objective is to develop a talent stack in your child from the time they're 1 year old. Imagine what kind of talent stack they could have by the time they're 18. Very different concept than the, now you sit in algebra class, now you sit in biology class, now we tell you out of context history. Very different concepts in terms of education. Talent stacks. So Owen didn't stop at stand-up comedy. He was in Hollywood, and he started to write scripts. For example, he produced something called Gay Town, which basically was a bizarre world in which the majority of people were, maybe it's not a bizarre world, but the majority of people are homosexual, and Owen is ostracized and treated differently for being a heterosexual straight white male. Now again, maybe it's not that much of a bizarre world. But he did this about 16 years ago, I think. Don't quote me on that, I'm paraphrasing. But the important thing is what he did was he started producing scripts. So he engaged in creative writing. That's a skill. That's a talent stack. He produced the videos, I believe. He could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he produced those videos. So you have writing. You have video production. You have video editing. The cutting of the music that he created. He used his own music that he created on the piano and put it in his production of the scripts he made for Gay Town. You see the talent stack coming together? He's funny. He can play the piano. He can engage in creative writing. He can produce videos. He engaged in video editing. You think that's a skill that would serve him later on, knowing his story? We'll get to that. He had people work with him on the script. He engaged in people management and relations. And he was very successful in making these scripts, such as Gay Town. But more importantly, and maybe he didn't know it at the time, Owen was adding to his talent stack. It started with being tall, intelligent, funny, comfortable speaking in public, being a master of rhetoric, being able to play Bach by ear on the piano. Well, now he has the ability to write creatively, to produce videos, to engage in video editing, to cut his music into the videos, to engage in people management, and he developed relationships with people, and he started to understand, he probably understood it already, but the importance in developing business relationships. Why is that? Because, and he could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when he originally got his job on Mumford & Sons, being one of the primary cast members on a very successful television show, it was through a relationship he had developed with someone who wound up being, I don't know, a writer, an editor, or something like that on Mumford & Sons. So the power of relationships got him on Mumford & Sons, and of course he eventually was one of the main characters in the movie The House Bunny, so he had experience acting. A lot of experience being comfortable and being good in front of a camera. A lot of experience working a crowd. I think you all know where this is going and why his talent stack has made him so invincible. So, this was Act 1, right? Owen, tall, intelligent, can't teach that, but a lot of people have different natural skills and you can build on those skills. Funny, that you can learn. He's very comfortable speaking in public. He knows how to work a crowd. He is a master of rhetoric, a master of persuasion. He can play Bach by ear on the piano. He's a very talented piano player. He's a creative writer. He's written scripts that have been very successful. He's produced these scripts. He's engaged in video editing, people management. He's formed relationships that have helped him in his career. And this is just Act 1. This is a very strong talent stack that Owen's developed. And now we're going to see the power of talent stacks. We're going to see what happens when institutions attempt to destroy a person that has a strong talent stack. By the way, you can apply this to Donald Trump, can't you? Act 2. So, Owen has a very cushy career. Great, he doesn't have to take any moral stand. But Owen decided to, and that cost him dearly. Although I would argue morally that put him in a very good standing with God, but that's neither here nor there. Act 2. A very powerful Hollywood producer had a son, I believe. I might be misquoted, but basic scenario. A very powerful Hollywood producer, editor, has a son, and he says that his little boy isn't a boy, 5 years old. He says this 5-year-old, he's a girl. He identifies as a girl. And because of that, the producer decides to give his son hormone blockers to start undergoing the process of a sex change. And Owen calls this out and says that what he's doing is, if you think about it, right, put the trans issue aside no matter how you think about it, right? Because it's one thing when there's an 18-year-old. But a 5-year-old can't possibly understand the consequences, the ramifications of taking these hormones. And the reason for that is once they take the hormones, they become chemically castrated. They become infertile. So the parents decided that this 5-year-old boy will never be able to have children. For anyone that's had children, there is no greater joy in life than your little child giving you a hug, your little child smiling at you when you come home, your little child giving you a kiss. So think about that. That is a grotesque thing to do to a child. So Owen calls this out. And he says, no, this is child abuse. And the agency that he worked for, now the big institutions come down on him. Now we see the power of talent stacks. CAA, his agency, comes down and says, what? Owen, you will retract what you tweeted, you will apologize, or there will be consequences. And Owen says, no, I can't just sit by and not say anything as a child is castrated. Think of this. This is no different, by the way. If this father said, you know what? I'm going to take a knife and cut my son's you-know-what off. Think about that. So Owen took a moral stand. Hollywood, CAA, his agency, says what? He says, Owen, you will retract or we will destroy you. Owen says, no, this is wrong. It's child abuse. He's cut from his agency and blackballed from Hollywood. Owen had all of this. He had money, fame, all the things that these vain people want, right? He could make it rain everywhere he goes. Oh my God, it's Owen. He's hanging out with Adam Sandler. He's hanging out with Vince Vaughn. They were in his inner circle. Talk about a moral stance, people. He gives this all up. Destroyed. Because he takes a stand saying that the trans issue, someone needs to take a stand. And Owen would have been destroyed. But why wasn't he destroyed? Well, first, Owen had a deeper talent stack than was on the surface. Owen actually owned real estate. And if you have listened to him, he said at one point, I wish more people read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Sean Stroke, it's a good buddy of mine back home. You know that I tell people all the time that you should read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And what Rich Dad, Poor Dad teaches is financial literacy. So Owen owns rental properties. He invested his money wisely. And what that means is every month, I don't know how many he owns. I don't get the sense it's too many, but enough to empower him to stay afloat. Every month, without doing any work, people that rent Owen's properties give him money. So let's say a person owns, and I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just saying that Owen has financial literacy. And you want your child to have financial literacy. By the way, you want your child to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by the time they're 10 years old. And the whole series of books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad also makes games, Cash Flow. It's designed to teach financial literacy. They have dumbed down versions for 10-year-olds. Designed to teach financial literacy. But Owen has financial literacy because he read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He owns rental properties. So imagine you own 4 properties and each month you get $1,000 profit from each property. Well, that means he would have $4,000 a month coming in. I don't know his exact situation, but financial literacy is part of his talent stack. You think you want your child to be financially literate? Can most 18-year-olds who graduate high school balance a checkbook, let alone tell you what an asset is versus a liability? Talent stacks. So Owen has money coming in, and Owen is able to work with his hands. He's an arborist, people. Owen's brother actually owns a business where he cuts down trees for a living. Very dangerous, very profitable, by the way, if you want to get into that. So Owen, he says screw it. He goes back to his hometown, starts cutting down trees with his brother. He has his rental income coming in. He can survive. He might not be in Hollywood, but he can have a family, have a home, feed his family, and still speak truth to power because his talent stack allows for it. By the way, he didn't have to work for his brother. He knows the skills of cutting down trees. He could have went to a different town, started his own business cutting down trees. So someone like that is very difficult to destroy. What do you want for your child? You want a child who, no matter what, can do what they want to do in life without powerful institutions like a big corporation or a prick boss telling them what to do. You want to raise a sovereign, independent child. You do that through talent stacks. This was Owen's Act 2, but luckily for the world and for Owen, he had an Act 3. So Owen took his stand on the trans issue on social media, and a lot of right-leaning YouTube personalities took note. They said, oh wow, look, someone in Hollywood is actually willing to take a stand, plus they wanted to highlight why Hollywood is so leftist, right? Hollywood is so leftist because if you take a stand, you get blackballed. It's that simple. Think about Jussie Smollett. He did a horrible hoax that could have started a race war in the United States of America, a fake hate crime, and Hollywood, for the most part, stood right behind him. The media stood right behind him. Compare that with Roseanne. She made a tweet, and one tweet saying Valerie Jarrett looked like a character from Planet of the Apes, which was obviously hilarious. And what happened? Her top-rated show was taken off the air. So you see with Owen and Roseanne and Jussie Smollett how Hollywood works. But Owen had his act 3, which was social media. He goes on YouTube. He starts doing interviews with people like Stefan Molyneux. People start to know his name outside of Hollywood because I didn't know who he was when he was in Hollywood. He starts to go on Twitter, and people that saw him on YouTube follow him on Twitter. By the way, I'm TomFFRnews on Twitter. They say, okay, this guy, he has something to add, something interesting. What skills of Owen's were used that empowered him on Twitter and YouTube? Well, he's very good at public speaking, right? So he's doing an interview with Stefan Molyneux. He's very well spoken. People like him. He's funny. People start to really like him. Like, oh man, this guy gets it. I can see why he was a Hollywood comedian. And he's speaking truth. So he's funny. He's speaking truth. He's a public speaker. He's a master of rhetoric. So he's very good at conveying his message. He's very good at destroying what have now become his political opponents. And he's in the political sphere now. So political people start to really like him. So they start to follow his channel. And then they go to his channel, and he's playing the piano. He's hilarious. He's using rhetoric to destroy his political opponents. He's intelligent. He's funny. His videos are very good because he has experience producing. He has experience with video editing. And just like that, Owen was very quickly, because of his talent stack, able to grow a huge social media following. He has, I think, 240,000 YouTube followers. So Owen's talent stack protected him when he was blackballed from Hollywood, when he took his trans stand. He was able to make a living. Then he gets on social media, and his talent stack quickly made it so that he could not just survive, but thrive. Now he's one of the most prominent, powerful YouTubers in the world. And this is what drives culture. Politics are downstream from culture. This is why the powers that be fear him. But he didn't stop learning new skills. So what new skills did he learn? If you've ever donated money to Owen, you know that you don't donate money to Owen on his PayPal. You donate money to Owen Benjamin Inc., Incorporated. Owen, because he's read books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has financial literacy. So he knew to incorporate, because if you incorporate, you can, through tax write-offs, learn what the rich people do and properly shelter your money so that you pay less in taxes to the government. So Owen, through his financial literacy, kept developing skills like incorporations, and he's able to protect some of his money. Now, he didn't completely protect it properly because if you follow him this week, well, we'll get to that. But his financial literacy helped him start his business. And if you see him, if you've listened to him talk about this, he says that he makes sure he spends enough money to write off enough money so that his tax bracket is lowered. This is financial literacy. This is on a lower level doing what the rich do. Now, the rich use a lot of loopholes in real estate, which you can learn, and a lot of loopholes through doing business with other countries. Owen's not on that level yet, but the point is he's learning to be financially literate. This is a talent stack, which protects him. He's very good at marketing, right? Owen uses songs. Think of the Tommy Robinson song. They said there was a secret court that journalists could not report, right? This is how they rule ya. So Owen Benjamin makes the Hallelujah cover or remix with the Bears to Tommy Robinson, and that's basically like the national anthem of England now. That song goes viral. I believe it has millions of views. That type of virality is great marketing. And it states what he stands for politically behind it, so he continues to grow a following. Then he uses his comedy. We talked about Gaytown, right? He had the experience from Gaytown. By the way, he could do the song because of his talent stack from playing back by ear, the piano. Then he can make comedies because he has experience doing things like Gaytown, writing, producing, video editing, people management. So he makes sketches like Shylock Holmes, a playoff on Sherlock Holmes, It's funny. It has a message behind it. By the way, for people that say Owen hates Jews, it's so ridiculous because part of the message behind Shylock Holmes is that it's ridiculous to just blindly blame Jewish people for everything, but it's okay to point out when there are people doing certain things that they shouldn't be doing. So what he's saying is, don't just blanket not like people, look at who they are as individuals, but also call out bullshit. So it's a powerful political message, but it also has virality. So he's very good at marketing. So business, financial literacy, marketing, and then of course doing interviews with people like Stefan Molyneux, the Red Elephant, all the people he's done interviews with, which get him in front of more and more eyeballs. And then when he's in front of those eyeballs, he uses his natural skills of rhetoric and being funny and quick on his feet and public speaking. All this talent stack comes together and he keeps growing a following. But unfortunately for Owen, the powers that be, and by the way, he was banned from Twitter. He had his YouTube channel demonetized before, his ability to live stream taken away, and he was able to overcome all of that because of his talent stack. And then last week, Owen had, because YouTube waits a long time to pay out. They wait a long time to pay out creators. YouTube stole $50,000 that people had given to Owen from him, which is obviously devastating. He was obviously very upset about it, which preempted me writing him a letter to show him my support. YouTube stole $50,000 from Owen, which, by the way, talk about learning, right? This is great marketing for me. Owen was kind enough to read my letter on his YouTube channel. He has 240,000 YouTube followers. Owen, if you watch this, thank you. He was kind enough to read my letter, not just read my letter. He went out of his way and said, please follow TomFFRnews. That meant a lot to me. Thank you, Owen. I really appreciate that. So I work hard on this. So marketing, interviews with others, and he understood the power of relations, right? Remember, it was a relationship that got him the job on Mumford & Sons, a friendship, and which ultimately probably helped him get a job as a star in a movie through Housepun. So all of the talents are coming together. But YouTube steals $50,000 from him. Tyrants. That's fascism, by the way, because political forces pressure this to happen. So he still has the real estate, right? He still has passive income. He still has his skills to cut down trees. He could be an arborist, right? So even if he's kicked completely off social media, even if let's say they shut down his ability to do banking, which, by the way, they have been shutting down people's ability to do banking. People like David Horowitz had his banking shut down. There was another woman through big league politics had her banking shut down. If this gets to Owen, he thinks PayPal is safe. My own research has told me that PayPal has kicked many people, including Faith Goldie and Tommy Robinson, off of their platform. So PayPal is not safe. He has a big enough profile where he should be looking to get around PayPal and their paywall block. So I hope he does that. They might be better than YouTube, but they're not safe. Faith Goldie, Tommy Robinson, both removed from PayPal. Find a way to get around that if you watch this, Owen. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't have the answer. So YouTube steals his money, but he could still do real estate. He could still be an arborist. But he has continued to develop talent stacks. Now, Owen's a smart guy. He learned his lesson when he got kicked out of Hollywood, right? He doesn't live above his means now. He lives, I think he has like 10, 20 acres. I know the number because he's mentioned it, but I don't know if he wants people to, I don't know if he likes people knowing. But, so he has a large amount of acres of land in a state that doesn't have a lot of cost of living. So my guess is he doesn't even have a mortgage. My guess. I don't know his situation. So his bills are very low. He has rental income. So you figure you're bringing in X amount of money a month if he's doing it right. Now, I don't know if he does it right, but if you do it right, you could bring in a good amount of money from passive income. He has the ability to be an arborist if he wants to, but he doesn't stop there. On his property, if you followed him, he has put up on his own with his bare hands a tremendous amount of fencing. He has built a shed with his bare hands, and he has been gardening. I believe he has a greenhouse. He has something like 50 trees, all different types of crops and spices. These are talent stacks, people. If he's completely removed from the internet, all of the internet, if the government comes in tomorrow and says Owen Benjamin cannot be on the internet, he will still have his real estate income, his low cost of income because he learned a lesson, which there's a lesson in teaching your children, by the way. Materialism versus moral values, and that's why my personal opinion is Christianity and faith and morality should be an important part of your children's education. But low cost of living, even if he's completely removed from the internet, he could still be an arborist. He could start a business building fences, right? He could do word of mouth, small town marketing, and his bills aren't that high to start. He could do something with his farming. He could make an agreement with small businesses to produce their food. If he wanted to, he could do things like, and he's a good promoter, even word of mouth. There's people around where I live, they have like just big pumpkin farms, big apple farms, and they charge tourists to come through. They tour their farms, they pick apples and pumpkins, and they have animals, so they have little petting zoos. I take my little boy to these petting zoos all the time, and they're always packed. He can do that. So Owen has a talent stack where even if all of the powerful institutions even if the banking institutions come after Owen, PayPal, YouTube, the banking institutions, his talent stack is so strong now with the fence building, with the being an arborist, with his ability to farm, that he is indestructible. This is why the oligarchs said they want a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers, because thinkers develop talent stacks that make them they're bulletproof to institutional tyranny. And because of that, people who are bulletproof to institutional tyranny are able to speak truth to power. And before the modern education system was hijacked in the United States of America, if you want to know more about this, research, I'm going to do a lot of talks about this, research the Reese Committee. Norman Dodd, in the early 1900s, the big tax-exempt foundations, the Morgans, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies got together and they figured out how to hijack the American education system to create a subservient nation of workers, not thinkers. Before that, America had people with talent stacks. By the way, please follow my other page. I'm going to post it now. Classical Learner. That will become my primary posting place on YouTube. Also follow Classical Learner on Facebook. Let me just post the links to that. If you could please follow. It is a great favor to me, and I'm going to be posting some good content there once I get to posting content there. So do it. Follow it. Help me. Help me. Help you. Jerry Maguire. So, so they hijacked our American education system because they want us to be a subservient nation of workers and not thinkers. Because if you raise your child to have a talent stack like that of Owen, it doesn't have to be exactly that. It's you just want your child to have a well-rounded skills that they're good at. Be able to build with their hands. Be able to speak publicly. Be able to work a crowd. Have basic financial literacy. If they have a talent stack that is well-ranged enough, they can set themselves up so they never have to rely on a corporation. They never have to rely on another major institution. They will become... That's hilarious. Owen would say white enthusiast. Mia List said it's a white supremacy board. By the way, I reject white supremacy. That's bullshit. I'm an American supremacist. I believe in the founding ideals of the American Constitution. I believe it's absurd to say a black person's not any more American than a white person. So how could I be a white supremacist? Black people have been in America since the 1700s. Why wouldn't they be American? I'm an American supremacist. But not the current America, the constitutional America, the Bill of Rights, the right to free speech, which, by the way, needs to be expanded. It's not a right to free speech from government. The government can't use private corporations, which the government gives artificial protection from lawsuit, and say, oh, well, they're a corporation. They're not a person. They're just some artificial, abstract entity that the government has created, and said, oh, well, the government can take away your freedom of speech. Bullshit. We need more checks and balances put on the American Constitution to guarantee our freedom of speech, to guarantee our right to assemble. Okay? So don't let them use... This is why like conservatives like Ben Shapiro are control opposition, because they don't let people think... They keep people in a thought bubble. They don't let people get exposed to ideas of what our rights actually are. Our rights do not come from government. We are endowed by God with our rights. These are natural rights. When I am born, I have the ability to speak, and no one can prevent that. And just because some these artificial abstract concepts like government, which are just a group of people with guns, and corporations who the group of people with guns say can do it, can take away my natural rights, that's bullshit. That's not true. We have natural rights that are endowed by our Creator, that are endowed by God. So, anyway, I just thought I would get into that. So, so Owen can't be destroyed even if he's removed from the public sphere. And then finally, because Owen's part of his talent stack is relations, one of the relationships he developed was with Vox Day. And that was great timing for Owen, because as he had 50K stolen from him by YouTube, Vox Day, a very impressive person with a very impressive talent stack himself, in the background was creating an alternative web platform, which as soon as YouTube took away Owen's ability to make money, Vox Day launched. It wasn't quite ready, but it was ready enough, unauthorized TV, and through that you can donate money on a monthly reoccurring basis to Owen. Vox Day's talent stack combined with Owen's protected Owen. So he was fortunate timing for him. Even with our talent stacks, you need good relations, and relationships are important. We need to build communities. That's why the focus of my channel is to teach parents how to properly educate their children, because then we're creating a homeschool community. By the way, today at around noon, I am doing a live interview with a very impressive woman. She's a homeschooler. She was homeschooled as a child. She has some experience homeschooling as a parent. She's going to talk about some of the difficulties she's had with homeschooling. This isn't like, oh, homeschooling is great, do it no matter what. What I'm trying to do is put a real world face on it so people could find what's right for them. But the primary message I preach is, even if you want to send your child to public school, that's fine. Stop allowing the government and the public school system to be the primary entity in charge of your child's education. You need to be the primary person taking control of your child's education. Whether they go to public school, whether they go to private school, or whether you homeschool. And homeschooling is not right for everyone. We all have different situations, but just putting your child in public school to an institution is teaching your child values that you find morally abhorrent is insanity. So at 12 o'clock, checking my live stream, very impressive woman I came across on the internet a few weeks ago. She had brought I had saw her post about they were trying to make laws to basically treat homeschoolers like child abusers. So she was drawing attention to this, and I said, hey, I'm like you. I do things on the internet. You want to come on and talk about it? And so we're going to do that live stream around noon. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, there's that. So I'm thinking tomorrow, if you guys enjoyed this, I will do a talent stack episode on Vox Day. Because he too, like Owen, has a very impressive talent stack, and that he's one of the most blackballed people on the internet, but that has made him also bulletproof to the big institutions that attempt to control him. So the primary message I want you to take away from learning from Owen is that if you raise your child with a proper talent stack, a wide range of skills, that they don't have to be the best at, but they have to be good at, their talent stack will make them bulletproof to institutional fascism. And that's what we want for our children. We want them to be strong. We want them to be independent. Now, there's concepts that go along with this. You have to understand the concept of the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. You have to understand the concept of feedback-based learning, which is learning through doing versus learning through textbooks. But these are things I talk about on my channel all the time. I'll recycle them. I'm going to beat them like a dead drum, because the more I talk about them, the more people will understand them, and the better people can be at raising their children to be strong and independent. So please make sure the links above, Classical Learner, that's my other YouTube channel that I'll eventually be posting to, and Classical Learner on Facebook. I'm TomFFRnews on Twitter. Go follow all my other shit. If you want to support me financially, I do really appreciate that. You can do so at www.patreon.com/FFRnews. It makes a big difference to me. Eventually, I have been writing a book on homeschooling. Eventually, I'll get that out. And what I really want to do is eventually I want to create a documentary with hundreds of interviews like I'm doing today of people that have homeschooled, been homeschooled, so I could put a public face on what that looks like, and we could really start to change the world from both the grassroots level and the macro level. If you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. And if not, well, then I'll catch you guys tomorrow with my talent stacks on Vox Day. I will post, right now, I will post my link that is Classical Learner, and I'll post my link to Facebook. Boom. So again, if you guys have any questions, now would be the time to ask. And if not, I'm going to cut out. I got a big day ahead of me. I will see you at 12 o'clock when I am doing my live stream with Laura. Very impressive woman. So, what's my channel going to be on? So yeah, I'm making my channel Classical Learner, which I really want to separate it from the FFR News. You know, I'd like to have it where if I want to talk about mainly political stuff, I could jump back and forth on FFR News. And if I want to talk about my education stuff, I could talk about, have a good one, Peter. I could talk about the educational stuff. This way, like, if people want to follow me just for education, they can do that. And if people want to follow me just for politics, they can do that. So I'd like to separate them. I have a series of comedy videos that I'm probably going to make. And I'm also going to be posting educational children's books that teach proper moral lessons and that are different from the propaganda books that we get all the time. So comedy videos, children books, interviews with homeschoolers, all that should be on that channel over time. But right now I have to build it up before I do anything else. So, all right, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in. Support my shit. As always, power to the individual, and long live liberty. Thanks, guys.